Welcome to the Daddyhood Rocks podcast with John Wolford and Brandon Miller. We are here to encourage you, empower you, and strengthen you so you can engage, level up, and have fun being a dad. We are going to have guests, deep conversations, hilarious stories, and insights that will give you the strength you need so you can be the dad you gotta be. And now, here are your hosts, John Wolford and Brandon Miller.
Welcome to another episode of the Daddyhood Rocks podcast. This is Brandon Miller, and my co-host, John Wolfie Wolford, will be joining me with our interview segment. What an awesome episode ahead. We have, and then this is kind of sad but funny, this is our second attempt with an interview with Mark Van Slyke of the Chicagoland area. The first time we had a wonderful interview, and I mean it went smoothly, felt great, loads of wisdom and just subtle humor, and just a lot of heartfelt stuff. And technical difficulties, the thing didn't even record. I was so mad and disappointed. Mark Van Slyke was so kind enough about a month and a half later to interview with us again. And I we had some more technical difficulties, but I was able to retrieve from the depths of Screencastify the interview, and so we were able to put this thing together. What the topics that this thing includes today is love, loss, and adoption. What an incredible story of adoption and perseverance. I'm so happy to say that I know Mark. My wife and I used to live up in the same city as him and his family, his 5 sons, and now in the process of adopting 2 girls, 2 teenagers. An incredible story, and I cannot wait to pass this segment on to our interview where John and I interview Mark Van Slyke. Want to just encourage you guys to keep on plugging in and listening and watching and interact with us on whatever platform it is. If it's Anchor or Spotify or whatever it is, rate us, comment, subscribe. We need to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you. We want to make this thing better. And we are barreling towards the end of season 1. We are just a couple weeks away from being done with season 1 of this podcast. We started on New Year's Day, and so this thing has been going for 6 months, which is pretty darn exciting. And we're gonna use this summer to relax and enjoy some new things with both of our families, John and I, and then we're going to resume the Daddyhood Rocks podcast. Season 2 begins that first week of September. We cannot wait. We're going to have just some meetings and some planning, even improve our physical, technical setup so we can bring forth even a better product. We cannot wait to get season 2 off the ground. We have a lot of hopes and dreams and ideas to make this thing even better. We feel like this first season was experimental. Neither of us had done a podcast. Brand new territory for both of us. And it's been therapeutic for us. It's been just a lot of fun, especially behind the scenes, how ridiculous we tend to be. We love to make each other laugh. We're 2 fifth graders trying to put together a podcast. But I'll touch base again on the flip side of this interview with Mark Van Slyke. But right now, I don't want you to delay hearing an incredible interview with Mark Van Slyke of Illinois. Here is our interview with Mark Van Slyke.
We are here with Mark Van Slyke. Mark, thank you so much for being on. Go ahead and introduce our listeners to yourself and to your ever-expanding family.
Well, like you said, my name is Mark, and which I don't like my first name, but that's okay. And I have 5 biological sons, ages 20 through 10. And then I have 2 girls that we are close to adopting. So we have full house at the house, which is fine.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, question for you: if you were to not go by your first name, what would you? If you could pick and choose your first name, what would you go by?
Fred. I've had that. That's been my favorite name for years and years.
Fred.
I don't know why. Fred.
Okay,
right.
we can arrange something. We have.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Man. Well, with that huge, wide range of ages and interests and everything, for you, that's a lot of juggling with making sure that you're providing enough of your own engagement and time and energy and so forth. What's the secret to your success as far as being able to engage with all your kids on their level with what they are interested in just effective, fun sort of ways?
Well, if I find that secret, I'll let you know. It's sometimes it's gauging what the kids need from day to day, from a minute to minute. Some of my preteens and teenagers, they show me that they want a little less engagement because they're doing things with their friends or they're but if you're in tune to your children, you get a sense of, oh, they need some dad time. Or I just said to my 12-year-old today, I said, hey, we need to do something. We haven't really hung out. And he said, well, Dad, we went out for my birthday, and his birthday is January 9th. I said, oh yeah, then we're good, son. Then but I try and make a conscious effort every month to do something and include individuals and then together as a group, especially now. And sometimes they're really good at going, hey, I need your time, or I need to talk to you about something. Or especially my older boys, they're pretty good about, hey, can I talk to you about something? Sometimes the younger ones show it in not constructive ways, and that's a signal too that, hey, let's go do something or take a ride or take a walk or what have you.
Awesome.
Sure. Yeah. Now you've got kind of a unique family setup. Your wife, Lucy, actually passed away a few years ago. How long had you been married, and what were your strengths together as a couple?
Oh, we had been married a long time, since 90. We got married in 95.
All right.
So that was a long time. And when you first get married, or you first, I remember the first time that I met her, I was a substitute teacher in school, and she came to observe the teacher that I was a sub for, and her maiden name was Wright. And so when I met her, I said, oh, I've always wanted to meet Miss Wright. Jokingly, of course. And so she stayed and she hung out and did whatever with the kids. And then the next year she came, and it was a teacher there. And I always feel bad for that group of students that I taught, because I feel like, after I met my wife, and there was not much teaching going on. It was, but we wanted a lot of the same things, and we valued a lot of the same things. I think we were both challenged with some of the same things, and we also had strengths that the other person didn't have. And I think all of those together made for a strong bond and a strong relationship. And we were just like every married couple. It was hills and valleys. And my wife also, she suffered from seasonal affective disorder. So fall and winter were tough times for her. And she suffered some postpartum depression after her children had come along. So, where she had to lay things down during those times, then it was my privilege to come along and pick them up and, support her that way. And the same thing was true when I was having a rough patch. She was my biggest cheerleader, and just someone that you could connect with even without saying anything, just sitting and chilling out and watching something dumb on television to decompress for the day.
So it sounds like you really tag teamed super well together, which is phenomenal.
It got better as we got older.
Better than the opposite direction, right? I mean, it's
for sure.
Unfortunately, a lot of times that does happen with couples. So that's good.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that was on your collective radar was adoption. And so you both, Lucy and you, were in the process of adopting from the Ukraine. And so my question is this, how did that process go? What did that look like? And even maybe before that, how did adoption come to be so important to you guys?
Sure. Well, we had even before we had kids, we started having children 5 years into our marriage. We'd always thought about adopting maybe from China or from South America. And then we were at church the Sunday after Thanksgiving in 2014. Normally we would be in Ohio with her family That year we decided we were going to go there for Christmas and stay in town for Thanksgiving. There was a missionary there who was a friend of someone at our church. She was a missionary who worked with children in orphanages in Ukraine, had prayer cards for those kids. And we picked up a card that had 2 girls because we had 5 boys at that time. And, she sent us an email after she found out we had picked up the girls. And we thought about it, prayed about it, and argued about it for a long time. Was this the path that God wanted us to go on? And so we decided that it was about a year later that we decided, okay, this is what we're going to pursue. And we're going to pursue adopting those 2 girls. And it was quite a learning process. Just the whole thing, just everything involved, from the requirements from agencies in the U.S. and agencies in Ukraine and facilitators who speak Russian to be able to translate our documents and all of the stuff that we learned as we progressed through the process. And it's not a quick process, I think it was almost a year and a half before we were ready to, okay, we've got everything in place. We've got some of the money we need. We're going to start having these fundraisers and we're ready to move forward. So luckily the missionary became a friend of ours, and she was able to help us stay connected to these 2 girls that we were planning on adopting. They didn't know us. We didn't know them, but our friend would take pictures of them and, this is how they're doing, this is what's going on. So about once a month or so, we'd do a little FaceTime or Zoom call. And she just kind of gave us an update about how the girls were doing. So
cool.
It was a long process, but you learn a lot. And if you don't learn a lot, you probably don't finish it up.
Okay. So just a part B of that question.
Sure, for sure.
So as things progressed with that slow moving forward, your wife Lucy, she came down with cancer, and so she sadly passed away. And so how did I know the answer, but I think it really would be enlightening. So how did that impact then that process in trying to adopt these girls?
Sure. Well, in Ukraine, the rule is it has to be a mom and a dad adopting. So we kind of put things on hold when she was going through treatments and, thinking that, she's going to recover and we'll be able to move forward again. So after she passed, and she passed in March of 2017, it essentially ended our adoption journey to Ukraine. We were able to host those 2 girls 2 summers, 2017, 2018, and they became part of our family. We would send them packages once a month. We would stay connected on social media. And even today, we still converse once or twice a month. Just they're now 19 and 17. So,
Oh, wow.
So it's, and they would love to come to America. Right now, their visas aren't flying out of the Ukrainian embassy. So maybe in a couple of years, they'll be able to come and visit. So that's kind of where that whole process went. But unlike some where it would just end, we were blessed to be able to host those two for a couple summers. So that was really, it was a great experience. It really was. It was just great.
That's incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, fast forwarding to today, you're in the process of adopting again. Now that's a different process. So
Correct.
Can you tell us about that process and what you still have to go through to finish that little chapter out?
For sure. So the second year our Ukrainian girls came, they were going to graduate from the orphanage. And so because of that, they were unable to come that third summer. And so I felt God turning my heart from international adoption to domestic adoption. And so kind of like with the Ukrainian adoption, like once we got into it, we jumped in with both feet, like, okay, let's learn everything there's to know about Ukrainian adoption. And so once I felt my heart being turned towards domestic adoption, again, you kind of jump in and go, okay, what do I need to do? And, where do I find children who are in need, and so on and so forth. And a really dear friend of mine who is our home study worker, she works with Illini Christian Ministries down there in the Champaign area. She said, before the state of Illinois will let you, even consider you for adopting anyone, you have to have your foster care license. And so I jumped on that and became a foster parent. I took the training, completed the training in about 8 days, which was self-paced, but I wanted to get into it. Became a licensed foster parent. And once I did that, while waiting for calls for children in need of foster care, either temporarily or long-term, I started exploring different websites for children who were in need of families. And there was a website in particular I searched daily called adoptuskids.org. And I'd go on, and the criteria was kind of the same every time I searched, because I had wanted to adopt girls. We had 5 boys, and I felt like our path was to adopt some girls. And so we did. We looked, or I looked, and I would submit my interest in different kids who'd come up, and most of the time it was, thank you, you're not a match, or they're going to be placed somewhere else, and okay, I'm still searching. And I think I inquired in probably over 70 children or sibling sets over the course of from say August to May. And sometimes most of the time I got a response, sometimes I didn't. And then on March 2nd of 2020, I saw a picture of my girls and inquired. And instead of getting a no thanks, or you don't match our criteria, they said, hey, we want to see your home study. So sent them my home study. In May, we had a meeting that talked about kind of their background, and then I had to decide if I wanted to pursue it. And it was after talking with my boys, we were like, yep, let's go for it. So we applied to adopt. After a long summer of meetings and waiting, July 31st of 2020, we were identified as the potential adoptive candidates, or placements is what they're called. And I'd love to say that it was great and it was, love at first sight, and the girls were like, awesome, cool, let's go for it. We started visits in September. We visited their home state twice, and it was okay, but it was like just getting to know you, and then they came to visit us in October, November, and lots of paperwork had to be written up and filed and approved and everything else. And then March 5th of 2021, they came home for good. And so because the state of Illinois, and other states are like this as well, they require you to act as a foster parent for your placements for 6 months until adoption can be finalized. But I have said this 100 times to their caseworkers, to them, I don't see this, because even our lawyer said, well, it's 6 months to see if things mesh and if, things work out and get along and so forth. And I said, I don't see this as a, let's see how it goes. This is not a trial. This is, we're not keeping the receipt so we can make a return if we need to. We're in all the way. And so we are in June 5th will be month 3 of 6.
Wow. Okay.
And so I'm hoping that in mid-September we'll be able to finalize our adoption. So
awesome,
man. Just how you put that, as far as we didn't keep the receipt. That I got a lump in my throat hearing that. That's just thank you. I mean, that's
so my pleasure.
Man, that's awesome. So now go ahead.
I was just going to say, that was something I tried to impress upon the girls too. It's like, this is not a trial. We're not going to see how we fit together. We're, because you can't do that with bio kids. You can't do that with your biology.
Right.
Nah, this one's not working out. We're going to take him, And I feel the same way about the girls. So,
yeah, that's so good.
Perfect.
So you have your 5 bio kids and you have your 2 girls. How is it seeing them mesh together and getting to know each other, and that comfortable level, the comfort level growing and increasing? What has that been like for you?
When we first had our first meeting, we went out to visit them, and both my girls are really good athletes, and so we played basketball the first time we met. And
cool.
My kids needed some encouragement to get out there because they were shy and tentative, and my 4th son was probably the most like he was really into it and talking and having conversations, and but the other ones were a little bit shy. And really every visit we had, it was kind of the same, getting to know you, and it was also when they came here, like, hey, you guys can't run around in your underwear. You have to, I want you to wear pants and a shirt when you're running around the house. And it's still a gradual kind of getting comfortable with each other. We all, most of the time we sit down to have dinner together, and there are conversations that happen, and when we're in the car together, there are conversations that happen, and so they're all doing a really nice job. My oldest son too, he's very engaging. My youngest likes to play board games, and so when we played about a bazillion board games from when they started, and I've done it willingly because if that's her love language, then I'm all for it. But then when the guys start to jump in and like, hey, I want to play too, or I think that's meaningful for the girls. So we've got some vacations planned this summer. We're going to take a family trip to Florida.
Awesome.
I will continue to do that. In some ways, it was easier for the boys to connect or bond with the Ukrainian girls because they didn't speak English, and my boys spoke very little Russian, so there wasn't any thought of, well, I have to be able, how can I communicate with them? It was just, we're in the same room and we're doing different things, and sometimes the girls would be, it was very kind of a light and fun time. And I think now I'm like, well, no, now they can communicate and you can talk and have conversations, and they're just a little bit leery. And I think that goes for all of them. The girls sometimes like to be by themselves in the room. Sometimes they come out, when the youngest says, "Hey, you want to watch a movie?" I'm like, "Yes, I do. Let's watch. What time is it? 12 o'clock? Let's watch a movie. Let's have at it."
Cool.
"Dad, can I stay up?" "Sure." "You want to stay up? Come on ahead. Let's watch," because we want them to, the more they do it, the easier it'll be. So I remember Thanksgiving. It was the first time the girls were here. And my oldest said, "You know what we should do right now?" This is after dinner. She said, "We should have a family basketball game." I'm like, "That sounds great. Let's go do that." And the boys were into it. We all went outside, played basketball. It's those little things that you just go, "Thank you, God." That's a victory. So we have ways to go, but we're doing well.
Yeah, it's got to be a unique situation being a family unit and then being a family unit modified, especially with your boys. They're not young, they're
Right.
they're teens, preteens, and so that's gotta be difficult. Now, related to everything, you are an elementary school educator. That brings a unique perspective in and of itself. So what do you teach, and how has that career impacted the way you parent, the way you interact with your kids?
I teach fifth grade, and this year I was the remote learning teacher. So every grade needed a teacher to teach remote students, and I didn't have a big desire one way or the other to do it. So my coworkers did. They wanted to teach in person, so I became the virtual teacher. And I don't know, I guess the way that or being a teacher, I think I maybe have a higher expectation level when it comes to them getting their schoolwork done or being responsible for their actions. And none of that is really from myself. It's things that I learned from previous coworkers. I had one coworker a very long time ago, and I remember clearly she had a teenage son, and she'd ask him about something, and he'd say, "Yeah, but this kid," and she, "No, I don't want to know what the other guy. I want to know what you were doing." And that's kind of how I don't care what the other guy was doing. You tell me what you were doing, or I don't want to hear about what you didn't get finished. Let's work. Okay, let's fix it now. Let's get on it. And this, it'll sound ridiculous, but Mr. Rogers is one of my personal heroes. And
yes,
when I I don't know, I seem to watch an inordinate amount of episodes and some little clips and things. But I really, I take that to heart, like how he interacted with the people that he met and how he spoke to the children. And, every teacher has a teacher voice, and you pull it out when you need to, especially at the end of the year, because everyone's gone crazy. But I really do try and interact with my children in a way that would be, honoring to God, and like kind of like what would Mr. Rogers do? How would he interact with them? And I do that at home to some extent. You ask my children, they'd say, "No, you're much nicer to your students, or you're much more understanding." But I'm also not responsible for my students outside of school. I'm responsible for my children outside of school. And so I want them to maybe have that higher standard of, well, he's doing this. I don't care about what he's doing. I want you to succeed. I want you to have choices. And I've been teaching for, 25 plus years. I started teaching in 94. And
wow.
The longer I do it, and my oldest son, he's going to be a teacher, and he's having some anxiety about not feeling confident. Like, it took me 6 years to feel any kind of confidence in the classroom. And after that, after I stopped caring what people thought about what I was doing, knowing that I was servicing my students to the best of my ability, then I kind of stopped worrying about that. And but as you get older and mature in your profession or as a parent, you start to, I think, address things differently, or the perspective that you had when you were younger changes, and the whole turning into your parent or turning into the person that you said you never turn into.
Yes.
And you start to, but you do it because they had more wisdom than you did at the time, and you'd be a fool not to try and take some of that wisdom and go, I'm going to put that into what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Okay. So now, one thing that we ask in some form or another, we ask all of our guests for the most part, some version of this. And so I'm going to give you 3 options, Mark.
All right.
So as far as your most embarrassing, scary, or disgusting dad moment.
The scary and disgusting ones are usually they're combined. And the scary part is when my children get hurt. Like those are the times that that I get the most ramped up, like kids throwing up, or I'd like some scientists to examine and explain the physics of how a baby poops up. I don't understand how that
magic
happens,
poop,
right? But that stuff never bothered me. Like the throw up, I'm the one who cleaned it up. The poop, that didn't bother me. But when someone gets hurt, or there's an accident, that kind of heightens my, it puts me into action. And we've had a couple of instances where, like my now graduate, when he was about 3 or 4, we were fishing and he decided he was done, took a walk and slipped on some rocks and cracked his lip. And, so I kind of got like, oh my gosh, I whipped my shirt off and held it up there. Mom took him to the hospital to get stitches. Or when my youngest, he was standing on a chair and fell over and smacked his nose so that you could lift it off his skull. And like, that was like, okay, we got to go to the doctor now. And, but of course I hate when those things happen, but I never saw it as an inconvenience to have to tend to them, because
Sure.
It was my honor and privilege and responsibility to care for them when they're hurt. And even when my youngest daughter cut her finger, I ran and got a Band-Aid, and she's like, no, it's all right. I'm all right. But I'm like, that's my job. That's my job to help take care of things like that. So the scary, gross part is when my kids get hurt. That's it hurt, not like rub some dirt on it, you'll be fine.
Right.
We all have those things, but and luckily they've been few and far between. But those are the most memorable things when my kids get hurt.
Now, before John asks his last question, I have a piggyback question on that. So your oldest, who is wanting to go into education, he had a spell as a professional wrestler in the Chicagoland area, which is that?
He just had his first return match tonight. So.
Yes. Did he? How'd that go?
He was in a battle royal. He's in with a new company.
Okay.
He took a break for about a year once COVID hit, but got back into it with a new organization. He was in a battle royal for it was an 8-minute match. He was in it for 4 minutes. Sent me a picture. His chest was all red, but he loved it. He really enjoyed it. So,
that's cool.
But what they do as a professional wrestler, they train.
Yep.
And that's not to say that no one gets hurt, but they train to protect each other and to fall correctly. And luckily, he hasn't really had any serious injury. He's also 20 and very strong. And, whereas if I was to do that, I'd be incapacitated for quite a while.
So if someone did a pile driver or a suplex to you, you might not get up for a while.
I'm tipping the scales at 211. I'm not sure they're going to be lifting me up for any of those things. But no, actually, that's the kind of thing I worry about less.
Okay.
Like, because he loves it, and I know he trains and he's strong, and the high flying things that he does, people kind of get freaked out about it. But his brothers and I, because we know it's planned and he trains for it, and we're excited when he hits those kinds of moves. And
that's fantastic.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, our last question, and we try and ask this one too because it's so important. We gather so much life experience from different dads, from different backgrounds. And so for you, what advice do you have to new dads, young dads who are just coming into daddyhood? What advice do you have for them?
Sometimes when I look back at my kids when they were little and the times that were most meaningful to me and probably to them is when I was really active and engaged with them. And when I was present and active and engaged. We all need time out away from children, especially our own children sometimes.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Where's your mother? But to be present with them and engaged and active as much as possible, because I look at my now 18-year-old who's graduating, and he's not moving away to college. He's going to go to Aurora University, which is just down the street, and he's going to live here. And my oldest is, he's getting the feeling wanting to go off on his own, and I don't think it's going to happen just yet. He's 20. But it goes by in retrospect very quickly. And growing up, I did not have strong father figures in the house, but I was blessed with really strong father figures outside the house.
Cool.
My neighbor, he was the kind of dad that I wanted to be. And he was a teacher too. And every summer he was doing a project for the kids. I remember him sitting outside in his porch chair, singing to his son. And I had a number of other father figures that I looked up to, not as a father's son, but like, that's the kind of man, that's the kind of dad that I want to be. So I think when we're that way to our children, be it boys or girls, I think even when they hit the teenage years and you think, oh, what a waste of the last 10 years that I was spending and investing in them, because now they're totally into whatever that doesn't include me, it does have an impact, and it's there. And I have had, this is not parenting related, but I've had a number of students who have written me letters far after they have graduated or have been in elementary school, and they'll bring something up that we talked about, or that I said to them, or a conversation we had, and what it meant to them. And it's those kinds of things that you see, not just like with kids outside, if you're connected with children outside your house, but inside, your kids, like they think that too, but they don't necessarily think to talk about it or to say that until maybe later on, until you're older. So that's my advice to dads nationwide.
Fantastic. Well, Mark, we greatly appreciate that you not once, but twice have carved out time to hang out with us.
The first two-time guest.
It's a special place. The first time we had some technical difficulties on our end, and so it was the lost interview. It was a great interview, and this one was just as good though. Thank you for sharing your experience and just your. I love your approach to fatherhood, your approach to being patient while you're waiting for adoption, and just for sharing that wisdom with us and your insights. So, Mark, thank you for hanging out with us. Before we wrap this thing up, any last comments or anything you want to throw on the table for our listeners?
I'm a big proponent of foster care and adoption. And if that's something you think you're being called to, even if it's just a little bit, look into it, pursue it. Even if you just investigate and say, hey, what could that look like for my family? Because there are literally tens of thousands of children internationally who are in orphanages without advocates, without families, without people to claim them. And for me, that's, when there's a very short, tiny song or bit from David Crowder, and it's about how when I saw your face, I finally knew, and you said I'm yours, I finally knew I'm home. And there are lots and lots of kids in, like I said, orphanages around the world. There are kids in foster care who need someone to pursue them, need someone to want them. And so if that's something even remotely like, maybe, I would encourage you to look into it and see if that's where you're being led, because it's not easy and it's not for everyone, but it certainly is important. So
yeah, wonderful.
Awesome.
Very cool. Well, Mark, thank you. Have yourself a great weekend. Sounds like it's going to be a busy one. So enjoy the heck out of it. And we'll catch you. We would love to invite you back for sometime in season 2. So stay tuned. We want you to be the first, third time guest. So, all right, Mark, take care of yourself. We'll see you. All right. See you, man.
Bye-bye.
What an interview with Mark Van Slyke. We're so grateful that he was able to join us for the second time for another fantastic interview. We hope that you enjoyed that you were inspired and motivated by that, thinking of fostering, thinking of adopting, and whatever your journey looks like, whether it includes loss, whether it includes having large numbers of children, whatever it is, we hope that this really spoke to you and really touched you deep inside. I know it did for John and for myself. So wherever you find podcasts, we are there, whether it's Spotify or Pandora, Google Podcasts, Apple. Find us there. And right now you're watching this on the BK Miller YouTube channel. For season 2, we're going to be switching over to the Daddyhood Rocks podcast channel, which makes a whole lot of sense. Thank you for your patience on that. We want to hear from you. What you think would make this podcast even better as we rocket into season 2. So comment, subscribe, whatever it is, and share the heck out of this thing. We want this to get to your friends and your friends' friends, to your cousin Louie who lives in Kentucky, whoever it is. Pass these videos and podcasts along. Share the heck out of them. And that's how we can continue our journey of encouraging dads everywhere to engage, to level up, and have fun being dads. That's why we're doing what we're doing. We're here for you guys. And we're here for us, too. It's an important job being a dad. And we want to be able to get better and better and better. We want you to know that we love you, the listener. We appreciate you. We're so thankful that you are along with us for this ride. What a wild ride it's been. So, until next time, I hope you know that Daddyhood rocks, and so do you.